All right. What's happening, people? I was trying to get some of this streaming software set up so that I could actually share my screen and do like a mock draft or something like that. Um, but it's a little trickier than expected. So I'm still working through that. I don't know why. I don't know why it's as difficult as it is to like get streaming software set up to screen share to YouTube. Um, at this point, I might as well see if I can hire somebody to just like show me what to do. But I would love to get a screen share set up so that I could do a mock draft with you guys or like a rookie draft. They don't make it easy, unfortunately, figuring out this software to connect it to YouTube, where you have the whole setup exactly the way you want it and the video's free flowing and everything looks good and all that. So we're going to continue to do it from this setup, from this situation, just so that we can hang out in some capacity, in the most normal capacity, straightforward capacity that I know how to manage, that I know how to handle. Um, because when I did it from the streaming software that we had previously set up, I know that the video was incredibly clunky. It was incredibly choppy and slow. So, and it's not for lack of trying either, but that has been a little annoying trying to figure out, but that's still something I'm working through um, during this transition period. What's happening, everybody? Hopefully, everybody's having a good start to their week. Well, it's almost over at this point. Let me go ahead and drop the link to this in our trusty Discord in case anybody in there wants to come in and hang out. And it's an exciting time of year, right? I mean, we are officially 2 weeks from the NFL draft, almost 2 weeks to a T. Let me get this in Discord. Man, this is moving slow. All right, we're all set there. Yeah, I'm trying to get this streaming software set up so that I can share my screen, but it won't allow me to also connect my camera as opposed to my webcam with the streaming software. And then when I actually do get it to connect, there's this like clicking noise that's really annoying that I wasn't able to get rid of. So I'm still, like I said, I'm still working to figure out how to get the software set up so that I can screen share. We could do mock drafts together. It's not just me with the straight up YouTube studio setup. Still working through that. I've watched so many videos too. I guess I'm just not tech savvy. So appreciate everybody hanging out in the bootleg setup. At least we get to still hang out here and talk shop. Again, with 2 weeks to go to the rookie draft, it's about 2 weeks and 2 hours at this point, I think, right? Draft usually kicks off at like 8 o'clock Eastern that Thursday. So we're in it, man. We're in the guts of it. We're like the doldrums of the offseason are coming to a close. There isn't too much time during the NFL offseason where there's not a lot going on. This is one of those times and it's coming to a close. So it'll be nice where we actually have some headlines and storylines to talk through once the dust settles, at least on the first round of the NFL draft. So looking forward to that. The conversations continue to be much of the same. Who's the number one pick? Which quarterback do you take first overall? Where are who after Jackson Smith and Jigba will be the next receiver off the board? Zay Flowers appears by consensus to have leapfrogged both Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison. And then, of course, again, after Bijan, where do the running backs fall? And how far do they dip before we actually worry about the draft capital that is used on them? I mean, there's another thought process here from the perspective of, well, running backs are devalued now in the NFL. That's absolutely true, and you see it in the form of where they get drafted in the draft these days. But the glass half full, argument there or thought process there is a running back that has fourth round draft capital, that's not a death sentence anymore. That used to be like fourth and fifth round, like, oh, they're long shots, they're probably they're third or fourth on the depth chart, and it's going to be difficult for them to move up. I mean, anymore, a fourth round pick, a running back taken in the fourth round is essentially, as far as I'm concerned, a day two pick. They absolutely have an opportunity to still get involved. So, depending on the rookie running backs that you guys led into the draft, whether it's like a Tank Bigsby or a Sean Tucker, I wouldn't get discouraged if they're not selected on Friday. It's like, okay, they still got a chance to get selected on Saturday, and as long as it's not like the sixth or seventh round, then we're all right here. So all of these topics, of course, can be on the table. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for coming in. So we're still in the again, Rojo. As far as Will, I'm still trying to figure out this friggin' streaming software so that it runs smoothly with a two up, with screen sharing with two devices and all of that stuff. He's eager to get on board. He's eager to join us. I don't want to waste his or your guys' time though at the moment while I'm still kind of trying to figure out this stupid streaming software so that it runs without a hitch. So TBD on his. I would hopefully have it all set up going into the NFL draft. We obviously would love to live stream during the draft and hang out with you guys and anybody that wants to come in and hang out while the draft is unfolding. That is not today, unfortunately. So he's still very much involved. He's thrown a couple shorts out. I know he's working on some audio for a couple more rookies before the NFL draft. So he's got some stuff in his personal pipeline that I'm looking forward to seeing. But as far as these live streams, again, where gelled when we still had him was he was tech savvy in a way that I have yet to prove that I'm capable of. But I'm watching all the YouTube videos, man, trying to find out like here's how you run this without any issues, without any weird noises popping up, with your correct video setup the way you want it to be, and so that you can screen share. Again, I would love to pull up Sleeper and do mock drafts where it's shared right here, but it's more complicated than at this point I feel like it should be. But that's where we're at. Will is certainly on his way. We will get this resolved. Obviously, it's not impossible. Other channels do it all the time, including ours not too long ago. I guess I just need to find the right video that correctly navigates me through this. So, but he will be joining us soon. That is at least the plan. I tried to do it. I even tried to do it through just like Zoom, and that was a struggle as well. So still working through that. It might be time to call an expert or something and have them walk me through it. That is the other news of the day. I guess the big news of the day is that the Washington Commanders appear to be on the verge of being sold. I don't know that it's official yet. I know that Dan Snyder has agreed to the sale. I think that means that it's a preliminary agreement. There are other bidders can still up their price or up their offer. But for now, a group that's led by Josh Harris, he owns the Philadelphia 76ers. He owns the New Jersey Devils. He might have some stake in the Premier League somewhere. I can't keep track anymore of these billionaires and what they all own. But he leads a group that will be purchasing the Commanders, at least in preliminarily, for $6.05 billion. That's the asking price. That's what it appears to be. What Dan Snyder appears to be letting the team go for. So that appears to be moving forward. And I'll just say, on the topic of the Commanders, if you're a Commanders fan, obviously you were waiting for this day for years, because sports franchises in general, it doesn't matter the league, it doesn't matter the organization, it doesn't matter the city, it doesn't matter any of that stuff. It's not just about, and I'll argue this, I'll die on this hill tooth and nail for every day. It's not just about getting it right in the draft. It's not just about getting it right in free agency. It's not about picking players who you think are talented and can contribute on the field in a positive way to your team, or on the court, or on the ice, or wherever else you play sports. It's not just about that. I am a firm believer that there's more to a franchise's success than just ending up with the best players in the draft or the top two or three players in free agency. You got to have a winning culture established from the top down. And that was never going to be the case with what we now know going on behind closed doors with the Commanders franchise, with Dan Snyder at the helm. Now he moves on in this expected sale. So you're feeling better about that because there's nowhere to go but up in that regard, right? If you're a Commanders fan, or if you just are somebody who, you know, whether it's a moral perspective or whatever, you just want to see the franchise, be pulled from the mud. This is the news that you were waiting for. This is the news that you were looking for. The day that comes when Dan Snyder sells the team. All you have to do is go on Twitter and just pull up the Washington Commanders Twitter page, and any post that the account that comes from the account, every reaction, or like 9 out of 10 reactions, is sell the team. Sell the team. Washington fans have been wanting him to sell this team for what, a decade? Probably longer. Maybe not all of them, but certainly most of them now. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's Josh Harris. Now, all right, the Devils are good, right? The New Jersey Devils are good. The Sixers are not. Well, they're a bad good team. They're good enough to beat all the mediocre and below teams. They're not good enough to beat the good teams. I just don't know how I feel about an owner his heart is just, he's a billionaire who wants to just line his pockets with more money. He's not going to have any type of sole focus or be fully invested in the Washington Commanders. That would be my one pause. Now, again, anything is an upgrade over Dan Snyder if you're a Washington Commanders fan. Anything with a pulse is better than what has currently gone on in that organization since he bought the team. I think it was in 1999. So, you're talking 25 years. But we'll see what happens with this new ownership group and whether they do instill a winning culture, because I don't think the Sixers have won a lot of games in the NBA. That's because they have one of the best players in the league. The New Jersey Devils are going to the playoffs and are a good team in the NHL. They got lucky and they got really strong draft odds. Who was the guy? Jack. Oh my gosh, I don't follow the NHL as much as I used to. Jack Hughes, I think, is their really good player that they got really high in the draft. So those franchises got a little lucky, which is great. Every franchise needs to get a little lucky at one point or another to land a really good player high in the draft. It's not anything that Josh Harris did as an owner. It has nothing to do with anything that guy did. So, yes, it's a step up from Dan Snyder because anything would have been a step up from Dan Snyder. I just don't know how big of a step up it is for Washington. They're just going to another billionaire who just wants to line his pockets. And sure, you can make the argument that that's every owner for every team, for every sport. It just rubs it. I have a weird feeling about a guy who now owns 3 different franchises, or is a majority owner of 3 different franchises in 3 different leagues. Where does your loyalty lie, Josh Harris? How invested are you in these teams winning versus how invested are you in the bottom line that these teams are going to bring in? So it'll be interesting to see. it'll be an interesting topic of conversation to be had 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when we're multiple years removed from Dan Snyder's ownership of the team, and we get to see what has come of that. Um, Time will tell. I guess from an unbiased somebody who loves fantasy and therefore just wants to talk football. I suppose I'm happy for Commanders fans. As an Eagles fan, I didn't mind that Dan Snyder continued to be one of the most inept owners in sports that kept that team closer to the bottom than the top for too long. Now, that's not fair to the players that played for them, but I guess that's the world we live in, where there are some owners who you just can't trust for a variety of different reasons. Snyder is certainly that. I don't know if I feel much different about Josh Harris now. I don't know that Josh Harris is the scumbag that Daniel Snyder is. I just don't know if I trust him to actually invest what it's going to take for that team to be successful. And if he's not just interested in lining his pockets. So that's where we're at with Washington. I'm happy to take any questions about the Commanders and the sale and what that could mean for the team. I feel like I've kind of spoken my piece about that to this point. Um, it's going to be one of those conversations. It's almost like the draft, right? It's kind of like how does this team look 3 years from now, 4 years from now? Because we got to remember, with the draft, it's easy and frequent to see instant reactions about, did a team make the right pick right then and there, right? Instant gratification, a reaction. That's what people are looking for these days, right? They want to consume or provide an instant reaction to something that happens, which isn't exactly fair to the player or the organization or the team or anything like that, because we just don't know yet how it's going to play out. Even a rookie who has a bad year, we all know, we've seen it before. We've seen players have bad seasons and bounce back and have good seasons. You immediately want to call that guy a scrub or a bust if he has a bad year, especially as a young player, but then he bounces back. And it's like, now you've done a 180 on your take. And then it just looks silly to have had a take too early to begin with. So, similar light, we got to see what type of culture gets instilled in Washington now that Daniel Snyder is expected to be out again. The sale is in a preliminary agreement. I don't think it's officially official yet. Other bidders still have a chance to get involved, although it looks at this point like Josh Harris, the group led by Josh Harris, is going to end up being the new owners of the Washington Commanders. So we'll see how things shake out over the coming years for them, because I think that's the amount of 3-4 years is the appropriate amount of time to truly gauge whether it worked out for the team or not. And again, that's a similar light in the NFL draft. We have to remember, if a rookie, even one that's drafted high, plays poorly year one, we have to remember it's not a death sentence for the guy. Now, there are certain things that get put on tape and get put out there where you could draw your own conclusions maybe a little sooner than your average situation, but we see it all the time. Rookies stumble out of the gate and then they presumably get better. So we got to grade these things. We got to remember, we got to grade these things on like a 3-year curve. That being said, 2 weeks away from everybody's favorite rookies. We find their landing spots. We know where they're going. We know whether it's a backfield that they're impacting, a wide receiver room that they're impacting, which quarterbacks are ending up in scenarios where they're going to be day one starters, which quarterbacks are going to end up sitting for maybe a certain amount of time, whether it's half a year or their full season or for a couple of years. That's also a possibility. You see that less and less these days, but it still happens, at least to start their rookie season. That's still kind of regular. That's still kind of normal. And then, at least for me personally, my dynasty rookie drafts are a week after the NFL draft, so I'm 3 weeks from that. 3 weeks away from being able to make those picks, from being able to make those selections. Um, as it stands right now, at least on sleeper, I'll start with Superflex, or I'll just look at Superflex for now. I feel like it's a pretty good indicator of outside of the quarterbacks. It's a good indicator of one QB rankings as well. Um, Nothing's changed as far as the top five for me in Superflex. We know that Bijan Robinson is going to be a first round pick. And even though all three of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson are going to go higher than him, are going to be drafted higher than him, and will have significant longevity upside over Bijan Robinson as far as their career peaks. I mean, we're talking about a Saquon level prospect in Bijan Robinson, who for the next 5 years, in theory, his ceiling is giving you top five running back seasons every single year. That's the expectation at this point for Bijan. That would be, I mean, that's the thing. The expectations are so high that at this point, anything less than a top five season this year, a top five season next year, a couple of top three finishes, and then, sprinkle in one overall RB1 performance at least once over the next 5 years. Like, that's the benchmark for Bijan right now. Fair or not. So he's going to be the first overall pick even in Superflex and Dynasty rookie drafts. And then, I mean, after that, everybody's making definitive statements. Bryce Young's going to be the first pick in the draft. The Panthers love Bryce Young. And then the next day you hear, well, no, now it's CJ Stroud. The Panthers actually really like CJ Stroud. He's going to be the first pick in the draft. He's the most ready. He's the most ready to run an NFL offense, to run a pro style offense. And then, of course, teams now more than ever are incredibly enticed by upside, by the tools, by the potential, by the ceiling, which is nowhere close to being um, a sure thing. But Anthony Richardson has entered that conversation for better or worse. Like, the floor with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud is that you'll be able to give them a 4 or 5 year leash, or at least a 3 or 4 year leash, before you have to make a decision to move off of them if you have to. Richardson Richardson is anybody's guess, right? He's thrown what, 400 passes in his career, so the sample size is small. It feels like, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, we've seen more of them. We've seen them at a high level. We've seen them both in huge games, in big games. You can somewhat safely kind of assume that you're getting a solid prospect in either one. With Anthony Richardson, it is all or nothing. I don't think there's going to be any in between with Anthony Richardson. The ceiling is he maybe takes his lumps his first couple years, and then he has a third year leap the way that Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts did. The alternative is he's the 40th best quarterback in the NFL, which is to say he's a top 10 backup. And the floor could honestly even be lower for him than that, just because the range of outcomes is so wide. I don't think it's as wide for Stroud and Bryce Young. I think it's a wide margin of potential outcomes for Anthony Richardson. That being said, If I'm the Carolina Panthers, I take a long, hard look at just swinging for that upside. Now, the drawback there is Carolina's bad enough where they could be picking in this spot again next year in a situation where it's kind of like Bijan in Dynasty right now. Next year in the NFL, if all goes according to plan, if all goes as expected, you're not going to have a choice if you have the first overall pick, and you're probably not going to want that choice either. You just pick Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams, as much as enticed and intrigued as I am by Anthony Richardson, you have to draft Caleb Williams, and he needs to be your day one starter. So there's a little bit of fire that's being played with there. If you take Anthony Richardson and he's maybe not the guy that you are hoping for right away, or maybe Andy Dalton just starts most of the year because Richardson's a project. And then what happens if Carolina bottoms out and has the first overall pick in the draft again? You don't trade. You can trade certain players for a mother load. It doesn't seem like you want to do that with a player with a prospect of Caleb Williams' ceiling. So it's a tough spot that as far as which of these three quarterbacks makes the most sense for Carolina moving forward. Do you take the sure bet in a prospect like Stroud or Young, who definitely have good ceilings, but I don't know if these guys are either. I don't know if from an NFL perspective they reach the upper echelon tier of NFL quarterbacks. Richardson, again, if he puts it all together, he could, but his floor is much lower. So it's an interesting decision that the Panthers need to weigh. It seems funny, and this could all be a smokescreen. It seems funny that there's an insinuation that they traded up for the first round pick or the first overall pick, and now they're not sure what they're actually going to do with it. It's like the draft day movie. But Anthony Richardson is incredibly enticing. It's just that you have to be willing to eat the potential that his floor is a backup quarterback that doesn't really ever materialize into a starter. That's the floor. I hope that's not the case because again, the kid has all the tools and he's super interesting. But he's going to be taking his lumps if he gets selected by Carolina. Um, it's not a good offense there right now. So he's going to have to, if he ever gets inserted in his rookie season, I would think Andy Dalton starts. I think if in week one, if the Panthers draft either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, that's their week one starter. If they draft Anthony Richardson, their week one starter is Andy Dalton. And then it'll just be a matter of how long into the season do the Panthers want to go before they unleash him. There's lots to play out. There's lots of different scenarios, and I'm excited that in 2 weeks' time, we'll have a conclusion to the quarterback musical chairs for this year. Yeah, if you, yeah, I agree, Rojo. If you have the 101, I don't care if it's one quarterback. I don't care if it's super flex. If your team is bad, if you're looking at a multi-year rebuild, um, you're 3 years away or you're 2 years away from being 2 years away. You're in a situation where your roster's not ready and it's not going to be ready in 2024 and it might not be ready in 2025. Yeah. Put the 101 on the block and ask for three firsts. Ask for 3 first round picks. I would try, get one in 2024. If you can get two in 2024, then great. And then get another one in 2025. If you can fall like if you can fall back to the back half of the first round this year, okay, fine. But I gotta know that Zay Flowers is gonna be there. Like, don't trade Bijan and then take another running back this year just because you picked up more capital later. Like, okay, in this scenario, let's say in this scenario, you've got the first overall pick. You're staring Bijan right down the sights, but the rest of your team stinks. Like, it's not good. Objectively, you're 3 or 4 years away from really actually competing, from really potentially cracking or breaking the upper echelon of the teams that are in your dynasty league. Well, don't trade that pick for three firsts, but then turn one of those firsts into Zach Charbonnet this year. That defeats the purpose, right? Trade that pick with a calculated purpose. Pick up wide receivers that you know you can bank on for years to come, for a longer shelf life than the running backs. Um, and then obviously in Superflex, if a quarterback falls in an ideal spot, you do that as well. But if I'm in that scenario, and this is a very specific scenario, but if I have the 101 and my team is really bad, I want 2024 first rounders. That should soften the blow for the person looking to move up to the 101, but also it should maximize the capital that you can get later. I'm asking for two 2024 firsts and a 2025 first. Because that maximizes my chances to get either Caleb Williams or Drake May in Superflex. And it maximizes my chances to get one of the elite wide receivers next year in either Marvin Harrison or what's his teammate's name? Emeka Buka, the other Ohio State receiver. Both of them look really good. So whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or Emeka, one of those is an ideal option. I would be a little surprised if somebody who's trying to move up to the 101 includes like a 23 first and a 24 first and an additional first, especially if that first can turn into some like a player of Smith and Jigba's caliber. I feel like that's not as likely to go down. Drafters are gonna feel like that's too rich. That's too rich of an offer, or too rich of an ask. So if you've got the 101, I'd be interested to hear what your thought process is if you feel like you're in a situation where you're not ready to compete, but you're staring Bijan right down the chute. You know, like I made it wasn't a good move. It wasn't a good trade, but in kind of like a desperation, I don't remember what I was thinking when I did this deal, but I don't know. Maybe I was asleep at the wheel. I was asleep at the wheel, that's for sure. My team bottom I had a dynasty team, I had a super flex team that kind of bottomed out this year, which it wasn't totally unexpected, but I bottomed out in a big way, and I had traded my 2023 first in the 2022 season, and it turned into the 101. In hindsight, I'm not too upset that I'm disappointed that I don't have the 101 at the moment to trade it, but I'm not going to get Bijan, and that's okay because my team's not ready to compete for a couple of years anyway. And as awesome as Bijan is, he wouldn't change that. Not with the current makeup that I have. I kept having quarterbacks that like I had a deep collection of quarterbacks that were never on the field together at the same time. Whether it was health or suspensions or whatever else had you, I never had that combination of quarterbacks all ready to go at my disposal at any one point. And that sunk me. So it is what it is. But if you are staring Bijan right down the chute, I'd be interested to hear what your situation is if it's anything other than, um, I can take him and I'll be ready to compete as soon as this year because now I'm adding the dynasty overall RB1 because he's already being billed as that. And I think if anybody who doesn't have Bijan listed or ranked as their dynasty RB1 is probably just waiting for the draft to happen to make it official. Whether you agree with that or not is it's a separate topic, different conversation entirely. But I think that's where the general consensus is, where the general dynasty community consensus is on Bijan. You know, so my personal situation is I don't have my 23 first in Superflex, but I've got two first rounders in 2024. I expect both of those picks to be really good. I'm getting Caleb Williams. I'm going to try to get Marvin Harrison Jr. as well, and I'll be set up. I'll be good to go starting in 2025. Just give me 2 years. Give me 2 years, and I'll be back. Give me 2 years, and I'll be back. Tank Bigsby or Sean Tucker, Rojo. So I I'm still getting caught up on Tank Bigsby. But what I know about Tank Bigsby is that he's a yards creator in a way that didn't show up in the stat sheet last year. Auburn's run blocking was awful. It was not good. Last season. I think the yards they created before contact. I'm the yards created before contact for the Auburn offensive line compared to the rest of the rookie. This isn't the entire nation. This isn't all of the schools. Just compared to the other known prospects at the running back position in this year's draft, Tank Bigsby was dealing with the worst offensive line of the rest of the running back prospects in this draft. He still was able to use what he had in front of him, turn it into 970 rushing yards on 179 carries and 10 touchdowns. And he caught the ball 30 times. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry with a bad offensive line. Again, I don't know what this is compared to the rest of the country, but just from the running back prospects in this year's draft, every single one of them, Bijan, Charbonnet, A-Chain, Sean Tucker, Gibbs, Evans. The list could go on and on. The guys that are in this year's draft, Spears. Tank Bigsby dealt with the worst run blocking of any of them and still produced over 5 yards a touch, 10 touchdowns, and 1,000 total yards from scrimmage on a little over 200 touches. Meanwhile, up in Syracuse, Sean Tucker was taken off the field this year compared to his 2021 season. Sean Tucker lost significant snaps on third down because the coaches were concerned about his pass blocking, and that resulted in, I don't think the number of touches he had was significantly lower, but the scrimmage yards was. I think he had like 35 or 40 fewer touches from 2021 to 2022, and that added up to 400 fewer scrimmage yards produced. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Sean Tucker was taken off the field on third down. If that's going to be an issue at the collegiate level, it's damn sure likely going to be a problem at the NFL level. I will take Tank Bigsby. I'll take Tank Bigsby. Now I got to look at what were Sean Tucker's 2021 stats. I just know that the drop off was concerning. Like, yeah, he still got the ball. He got the ball 200, he ran the ball a little over 200 times this past year, still eclipsed 1,000 yards, got 11 touchdowns, 5.1 yards per carry. It's not as good as Tank Bigsby. He was a little bit better catching the ball than Bigsby this year as far as yards per catch. But this dude had 260 plus touches his 2021 season and totaled over 1,700 scrimmage yards. He had about 1,300 in 2022. That's not a good trend. From 2021 to 2022, Sean Tucker had 40 fewer touches, 40 fewer carries. He had 16 more receptions. He had 20 in 2021. He had 36 in 2022. So he did catch the ball more. That's good. But the number of snaps he played went down. He was a full yard per carry less efficient this past season than he was in 2021. He had over 400 fewer rushing yards. He had over 400 fewer rushing yards from 2021 to 2022. And then here's the other thing about his receptions. Yeah, he caught 16 more. He had the same yardage output between the 2 years. So he was actually better on a yards per touch basis catching the ball on 20 catches in 2021 than he was on 36 catches in 2022. He fell off across the board. It's Tank Bigsby for me. I would much rather have I would much rather have Tank Bigsby. Like Tucker's I like watching Tucker. He's fast. He's got straight line speed. That's exciting. That'll always entice anybody, right? I think Bigsby is the guy I'd rather have. I think I think he was more effective. He was more effective on fewer touches in a worse situation. Now, maybe not situationally. Maybe compared to, you know, maybe compared to the level of competition, maybe Auburn's offensive line would have been fine in the ACC. They struggled in the SEC, right? Again, Tank Bigsby's offensive line this past year did him no favors. Maybe they would have been better in ACC play. They probably would have been. But Tucker makes me nervous. The drop off from 2021 to 2022 in pretty much every facet is a red flag for me. Um, the team wanted him to improve in pass protection scenarios, and that didn't happen. Otherwise, he would have been on the field on third downs in 2022. He saw a significant drop off there. And it led to a significant drop off in production. I'm taking Tank Bigsby over Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is fun to watch because he's fast. but I don't know if he does all the little things, the other things, the intangibles well enough for me to throw my weight behind him. Tank Bigsby, though, I'm taking him on underdog. I'm taking him late in underdog drafts in best balls. I think he's a great value. Tucker, I'm not feeling as much. Tucker, I'm not feeling as much. And I think the drop off in production and the drop off in snaps and opportunities warrants that. Tucker's ADP on Underdog Fantasy is around 188. That's in Superflex. Uh, Bigsby's ADP is 189. So they're neck and neck. I'd rather have Bigsby. I'd rather have Tank Bigsby. Right now on Sleeper, okay, they're also neck and neck. On Sleeper, Bigsby's ADP is slightly higher. Like I have in a super flex league, 12 team super flex league, I have the 203. If it's between him and Tucker, I'm taking Bigsby. Who else is available in that area? Hooker, Dalton Kincaid. Yeah, see, like I'm interested in Tajay Spears. I'm interested in, but like yeah, maybe this is big school bias, but I want to take a chance on. I want to take a chance on Bigsby. If I can get a shot at Tajay Spears, I would take that as well. The other guy I'm starting to warm up to is Marvin Mims. He put up. There's some advanced statistics that suggest that Marvin Mims is severely undervalued right now. I'm very interested in Marvin Mims as well. Not to totally shift gears, but he's a guy that I think y'all should be targeting in the middle of the second round if you have that. If you have a pick in that if you have a pick in that 204, 205, 206 range, maybe 207ish, you might be able to get away with. Give me Marvin Mims. The advanced statistics, when you look at it, this dude's got a shot as long as draft capital doesn't sink him. So we'll see there. Alex, you're looking to move up to the 103. If your best quarterback is Brett Ripien, then you you have no quarterbacks, my dude. Sure. I mean, yeah. If you know you'll get. Here's the drawback there, or maybe this isn't a drawback. I would want to know first, Alex. Who are those first? Who are those first four picks gonna be? Bijan is gonna go 101, but like, will Jackson Smith and Jigba find his way in the top four? Is there one of those? Is one of the people drafting in your league in the top four good at quarterback, and will they take Smith and Jigba? Like, do you need to make that trade? Like, if you think if there's a chance that Stroud or maybe if whether it's some combination of Stroud, Richardson, or Young, if one of those guys could be available at the 105, if the 103 or the 104 is good at quarterback and wants to take the best wide receiver prospect. You know. Um. Okay. So if the team at 103 is good at quarterback, then I would just stay put. I would. I would just stay put. Then you can kind of bank on I wouldn't offer 105 and 109. I feel like to move up 2 spots, that should cost you a second round, like a 105 plus the second round pick. I was gonna go QB. See, I never, I know there's multiple ways to approach this and how you want to draft and how do you want to construct your team. But for me, it's always like, and maybe this is a product of the leagues that I play in because sometimes my dynasty leagues are not super active, which is totally different conversation. But I'm drafted for in a way that like, how do I help myself the most first? Um, that being said, I would just come back and say I'll give you the 105 and a second round pick because he's only fallen back 2 spots. He's only going to fall back 2 spots. He's going to end up with either Jackson Smith and Jigba or one of the 3 quarterbacks that's worth to take in the top 5. And he gets to pick up a second round pick. I would, I mean, or if it has to be 2 firsts, offer the 111 instead of the 109. Man, you got the whole first round this year, man. Offer the 111 instead of the 109. I would just, I don't think you need to give up the 105 and the 109 just to move up 2 spots from the 105 when there's going to be a good player at the 105. Whether it's Richardson or Jackson Smith and Jigba or which, if any one of those other whatever the pecking order of the NFL draft is for these quarterbacks, whoever's available at the 105 of the top 3 quarterbacks or Smith and Jigba, you're going to get a good pick at the 105. Yeah. You'll get a good player there. And then real quick, just before I lose before I lose Rojo's comment, I mean, there's certainly a recent pedigree of Ole Miss receivers, right? From that perspective, it's like, oh, like where do we see Mingo going? Where does Mingo potentially end up? And he's interesting, right? He ran a 4.46. He's got the measurables. He's 6'2". He weighs 220. Like he's got the size. I mean, he could be a third round pick. He's more of a developmental prospect than I think the guys who come before him. Um, at least from the program. But a third round pick is his best case. I mean, is a best case scenario for him. And then he has a year or so to just kind of develop. I don't think he's ready in the same sense that some other Ole Miss receivers are, or when they came out not too recently, or yes, recently. Excuse me. And then Alex, as far as trading up to the 103, again, yeah, I would offer the 105 and a second if you have it. If you don't have a second round pick because you loaded up on the on those first round picks, then I guess the 105 and the 111, you shouldn't have to do the 105 and the 109 to move up 2 spots to take a player that the guy doesn't even need to begin with. But if that's the strategy they're going to go with, 105 in a second, I would come up to if that doesn't get it going, I would take a 105 and 111. I wouldn't come up higher than that though. Because like you said, you could use those, the '06, the '07, the '09. You could use those on Will Levis, Hendon Hooker. The Hooker's already like 25 years old. Um, well, you at least get a potential prospect. You get a prospect in Levis, who some people really, really like. I mean, everybody's got their different thoughts on all of these different guys. Um, but then at least you would have a prospect that is going to draw. There's going to be league wide intrigue in for at least the short term in Will Levis. And as far as selling Smith and Jigba, what's going on, Notorious? Good to see you. Selling Smith and Jigba for a quarterback later, I mean, if you end up staying at 105 and he's the guy who's there, I wouldn't sell. I mean, I'd sell him for a quarterback, but that quarterback better be a good one, a proven, established one, because I think Smith and Jigba is going to be awesome. I do. I think he's going to be really, really good. I think he's going to remind everybody that this past season was an injury riddled fluke, and that the real Jackson Smith and Jigba is a 1,600-yard receiver who set records in the Rose Bowl on an offense that still had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Like, that's the guy I want at wide receiver this year. He is the dude. He is the dude. And at this point, second place, I guess, is Zay Flowers. But because there's a question mark between him and Quentin Johnston, I don't even think it's Jordan Addison anymore. I think he's fallen off as far as that conversation. Um, that's what makes me want Smith and Jigba. He is head and shoulders above the rest of these wide receivers in this class. So if I'm trading Smith and Jigba for a quarterback, it's not for a dude in this draft. It's for somebody way more proven. Yeah, I think he's going to be really, really good. Notorious, you want to talk shop about the Bears? I can talk about DJ Moore. DJ Moore, what do you have? He's got like 5,000 plus receiving yards to his career, 5,200 in four NFL seasons, five NFL seasons. So he averages 1,000 yards a year. He failed to crack 900 this year, but it was like pulling teeth with the Carolina Panthers quarterbacks. Like, to that point, who has been DJ Moore's best quarterback in the NFL? Was it the connection he had with Sam Darnold? I guess. In 2021, he put up 93 catches, 1,100 yards. He only scored 4 touchdowns. But, and some of that wasn't with Darnold because Darnold missed time due to injury. But that might have been his best quarterback. And now he gets to play with Justin Fields, who presents way more upside today now than any quarterback DJ Moore had in Carolina. I think this is a nice boost for DJ Moore. I think he's going to have a really strong season. He's still only what, 25 years old. Yeah, he's 20 or oh, actually, tomorrow is DJ Moore's birthday. He turns 26. So a happy early birthday to DJ Moore. Shout out DJ Moore if you ever see this. You heard it here first. We're wishing you a happy birthday, an early one. Happy early 26th birthday to DJ Moore. Um, Still only 26 years old. He'll be 26 when this season starts. Um, Now gets to work with the quarterback with the most upside of any that he has had in his NFL career. Um, and I'm pretty sure that that DJ Moore would be already the Bears' all-time leader in receiving yards if he had started his career on the Bears with 5,200. So he presents a significant upgrade. He presents a significant upgrade for the Bears, and the Bears situation presents a significant upgrade for him. I think this is going to be a really strong match. I think this is going to be, you know, Moore maintains his wide receiver one status in this new offense. Sorry, Darnell Mooney. Sorry, Chase Claypool. You guys are ancillary wide receivers. Um, DJ Moore is going to be the top option. And the Bears are still a work in progress on defense, so they're going to have to throw it. Now, it's still going to be a run-oriented, a run-first, run-oriented offense because Justin Fields is that dude from a perspective of he's elite in the run game, and they're going to continue to play to the strengths of that, but while mixing in um, Donta Foreman and Khalil Herbert. It's going to be a run-heavy approach. But DJ Moore maintains his 85 plus catch upside, 1,100, 1,200 yard upside, and ideally 7 or 8 touchdowns. I mean, his underdog ADP, I think, is around like 45 right now. Double check that. Underdog ADP, this is at least in the Superflex contest that Underdog has right now. Oh, Superflex is a little different. His ADP is 64. That's not the best mark to go off of because it's Superflex and there's only 2 starting receiver spots in this league. So running backs are a little bit more valued, a little bit higher valued because you start 2 and 2 instead of 3 receivers and 2 running backs. But in one quarterback leagues where you start 3 receivers, DJ Moore's ADP will be in the 45-ish range. And I think that's a great spot for him. If you can get him in the 4th round, close to the end of the 4th round or in the 5th round, that's going to end up working out. That's going to end up being a really strong value, I think. I like this landing spot for DJ Moore. I like the, fresh start that he gets. They went out of their way to acquire him. They sold the first overall pick to get him in addition to other things. So it behooves them to heavily utilize DJ Moore. He was a part of the package that they acquired in exchange for the first overall pick in the draft. You damn well better use DJ Moore, Chicago, and I think they will. Yeah. He's got strong wide receiver 2 upside for this season, and he'll sprinkle in wide receiver 1 weeks. He should. Yeah. One quarterback redraft, I would expect his ADP falls in the 45 to 50-ish range. I'm buying that. Yeah, you have to use him. Whether you like DJ Moore or not, which I don't know anybody that doesn't, but again, when you give up the first overall pick in the draft, you better use the things that you got in return. And that's DJ Moore. So, yeah, I like his chances. And now he gets the best, he gets the best quarterback of his career. We have to give Justin Fields that benefit of the doubt, given what Moore worked with in Carolina, because we already knew what Sam Darnold was by the time he got there. So yeah, I think he's going to be good. Yeah, I think he turns in a wide receiver two finish for sure. I won't say wide receiver one, but I think he finishes. He can finish off a wide receiver two season for sure. A consistent wide receiver two season. Um, there should be more scoring opportunities than there were in Carolina. It shouldn't be as anemic as an offense because we saw Justin Fields start to kind of figure things out this past year, right? He can flip field position with one run. And now you're talking about increased scoring opportunities. So yeah. Um Rojo with Cedric Tillman, I wanted to like him. I wanted to like him. It's just, and maybe this is an unfair bias. I thought he was like this okay, this isn't correct. Who am I thinking of? Cedric Tillman is going to be he's okay, so he turns 23 in 6 days. For some reason I thought he was like 24 years old already. Still, um maybe this is an unfair bias, but he played all 4 years in college. He didn't have a spectacular season. Now he missed time. He missed time due to injury, right? Um, yeah, he suffered an ankle injury, and he's gonna. I mean, he's not okay. So he's 23. For some reason, I thought he was like 24, 25. It's just he's like a redshirt senior. He's an older prospect. He only had one season where he really showed out in 2021, his junior season. 64. He eclipsed 64 catches, eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards. He had 12 touchdowns. Like, had a great year. Came back to school. Production dropped off. That again because of the injury. Now he's gonna be 23 years old, coming into his rookie year. He's gonna be like 2 or 3 years older than all of his fellow draftees at the wide receiver position. I just kind of I don't know. I mean, I just kind of I'm kind of worried about those random intangibles that have a history of working against the player. Was he I guess did he get an additional year of eligibility because of the COVID season? I mean, he was already a redshirt sophomore that year. I worry guys about Cedric Tillman because it took him until I mean, regardless of the COVID year, regardless of the 2020 COVID season, it took him until his redshirt junior year to become a starter. That's just I know we're talking about prospects who dealt with a weird time, right? We're talking about prospects who dealt with a weird situation in 2020 with the COVID pandemic. So yeah, their eligibility might have been extended, or maybe certain conferences only played like 6 games, some played 10, some played a full season, some didn't play at all. Some players just straight up opted out. They didn't even play. Very weird, right? I won't in a vacuum hold that against anybody. Um, It's just that he spent his entire, his first couple of underclassmen seasons as a straight up backup. Like he didn't really mix in even that much. It was just kind of like he was behind multiple dudes. And then it took him until his red shirt junior season to actually become a starter. And he produced. He had a good season. To his credit, once he actually became a starter, he did produce. But now you're talking about a guy who's 22 years old, 21, he's 21, playing against mostly dudes who are younger than him. So of course he should be putting up good numbers. He should be putting up big numbers. That's what you want. That's what you need to see from older prospects playing against 18, 19, 20 year olds. They got to dominate. And he did good. He played well. I can't sit here and definitively say he dominated. I'm not super hype on Cedric Tillman, and maybe there are biases that are playing in here that are unfair because it's completely independent. Each player is independent of another. It's just the scenario, right? He's a redshirt senior. He's only got one big year of production to his credit, and he's going to be a little older. I have my reservations on Tillman. Just to be completely fair, as far as like you can't hype everybody up, right? You can't say good things about everyone. I of course hope he succeeds. I always say if there's a prospect that I don't like, I hope they prove me wrong. I'm just a dude in a chair with a microphone. Those are the guys that are actually going out there on the field. They're practicing. They're trying as hard as they can to get their dreams fulfilled. I'm not rooting against anybody. I'm never upset if somebody proves me wrong. If I originally think I don't like the player. It's just based on the circumstances, I can't get behind him from a fantasy perspective, from like investing from a fantasy perspective. If he has a 7 or 8 year NFL career where he becomes a solid vet and he's a good locker room guy, and like that's the best that plays out, but he's at the end of the day, he retires a multimillionaire, then damn it, good for Cedric Tillman. And I hope that's what happens for him, just from a fantasy perspective, because we're looking for dudes that can produce numbers on the football field, because that's what matters to our rosters, our fantasy teams. I'm worried. I have my reservations on Tillman, but he's going to be 23 years old in 6 days. So happy early birthday to Cedric Tillman as well. Happy early birthday to DJ Moore tomorrow. Happy birthday a week from now, Cedric Tillman. I hope you get drafted high, dude. I hope he gets drafted super high and crushes it. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure about that one. Xavier Smith, Roja. Yeah, I got to admit that he's not sure about. Not I'm not familiar. Let's. He went to Florida A&M. Okay, I mean I know about Florida A&M. We can do some homework on this guy right now. 87 catches for 1,000 yards. That's four with a 4.3 40. All right, we can see. Yeah, it's tough to find anything on this guy. I'll admit I'm not familiar with him. I won't sit here and be like, "Oh, I've heard of," yeah, if Steve Smith's obviously way super plugged in. That dude's the goat. Um yeah, he runs fast in the 40. That's always good. That's always fun. All right, so he ran sub 4.4. It's not a 4.3. It's a 4.39 or a 4.38. It's not a 4.3 flat. So, but still, sub 4.4 is fast as hell. Top 10 in the country in catches per game. top 10 in the country in receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, 16th in the country. He led HBCU receivers in catches per game, receiving yards, receiving yards per game. He was second in that one. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are there. What are we looking at here? Maybe like a fifth or sixth round pick, fifth or sixth round developmental prospect. Is our boy Steve just gassing him up? Yeah, I'm not familiar with Xavier Smith. How tall is this guy? He worked out for the Bucks. He had a workout for the Bucks. I'm just trying to see. Okay, so he's 5'9". He's 175 pounds. So he's of the Zay Flowers build pre combine for Zay Flowers. He bulked up, but 5'9", 175 ish. He's a good athlete. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a sixth round developmental pick. I don't even know if he cracks. It depends on the size of your rookie draft, right? It depends on how many rounds are in your rookie draft. If there's 5 and you have like one of the last couple picks in the draft and he ends up being a fifth round pick, then sure, take a chance, right? Take a shot. But in 4 round rookie drafts, he's probably not going to be a dude that cracks the draft board. I'd be a little stunned there. I mean, Sleeper doesn't even have him listed. If Rojo's still in here. Sleeper, I mean, for you say you can't find anything on him. Sleeper doesn't even have him in their draft database. You can't even you can't even draft him now if you wanted to. You can draft Xavier Hutchinson. He's a wide receiver from Iowa State. Or you can draft Xavier Valade. He's a running back from Arizona State. There is no Xavier Smith in Sleeper's rookie draft database. Oops. So, yeah, if you want to draft him, you're going to have to put a personal request into Sleeper to tell him to add them, or tell them to add him. And that's how you get Xavier Smith on your dynasty team. By saying asking, by reaching out to Sleeper and saying pretty please. So that's that on Xavier Smith. Um, just want to clearly say appreciate everybody who's in here for the engagement, asking questions, talking shop. Obviously, we're kind of like I said at the top of the show, we're toward the end of the doldrums of the NFL offseason, but it is still a bit of like we don't know what's going to happen time period of the NFL offseason. The draft will change all of that within the next couple of weeks. And again, I hope I have this freaking setup good to go so that Will can join us. In case anybody missed it, I am bringing somebody on to help. Will dropped a couple of shorts on the channel. I know he's got some audio that he's working on for a couple of rookies. I think he might be doing something on Jalen Hyatt. I won't hold him to that though because I'm not 100% sure where he's at with that, and you never know. People change their mind on what they. I change my mind all the time. Like I'm halfway through writing a script for somebody. I'm like, I'm gonna do this guy instead. So he's cooking in the background. I'm happy to have him on board. Again, I just gotta. I don't know why it's so complicated, and maybe I'm just adult when it comes to being tech savvy. But just trying to get this set up correct, where he's able to join us on the live streams. I just need to get us to that point. The goal is to hopefully have him at least by the NFL draft, if not sooner. Next Thursday would be great, but that'll be we're working on a TBD basis as of right now. But he is joining the team. He's going to give some insight. He's going to put some content out. I think you guys are going to like him. He's certainly a different personality than John, but I do think it's an educated mind, somebody who knows what he's talking about. I think he's coming from a place of calculations and he doesn't just he's not an off the cuff thinker. He will give you quality analysis. I got to get him added to the Discord as well. It's we'll get him added there as well. I got some guidance from John, but it's been a little bit of a it's been a little difficult getting a hold of him. I'm not 100% sure what is all going on over there, and I won't speculate. But yeah, I got a couple of basic tutorials on how to set things up, but it was just to set things up for me. It wasn't to set up like the screen share and all of that stuff. So I'm kind of figuring things out on my own at the moment. That's kind of all I got on that front. I don't really know what the deal is, but if he comes around, it'd be a welcome thing. But we're good for now. Again, I'm happy to bring Will on board. I think he's going to be a really good resource for you guys. Onward and upward. I haven't done it, and just to come back to Campus to Canton, I haven't done that yet. I heard about those things for the first time, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe just before we started this pod up. I haven't done Campus to Canton. I don't know if I'm diving that deep, but big respect to those who do, because you really got to know your shit if you do Campus to Canton. I did see somebody yesterday, or a couple days ago, they were like, they are officially the first first person ever to draft Archie Manning to a dynasty team. And it's just like, or Arch Manning to a dynasty team. So there's a name for you for 2026, I guess. We got some time before he joins the show. And yeah, that's a good call. I can try to I'm sure there's somebody I can reach out to help fix this thing up. So that's my homework. That's my homework prior to the NFL draft. I can sure there's somebody I can find who can help out. Yeah, that's another level though. The Canvas Can's on another level. As far as okay, I'll just keep taking questions. If you guys have them, I'll keep taking them. As far as Tyler Algier, Rojo, the Falcons have a lot of needs. Running back's probably not one of them. But I'm not convinced that they just roll into the season with what they currently have. I think Algier's going to be solid. I think he's going to be a really good contributor for the Falcons. I'm also anticipating, and whether this comes with Ritter or they bring somebody else in this year. I mean, they signed Taylor Heineke, but he's a backup. I don't know, one, that they don't add to their backfield, and two, somewhat change the philosophy of the offense a little bit. Yeah, you would think they might want to run just because they brought in another blocking tight end in, or well, Jonnu Smith's not a blocking tight end, but he's meant for 12 personnel sets because he's not supplanting Kyle Pitts at the top of the depth chart. Um, so I guess 12 personnel. 12 personnel means you can go a variety of ways. You can do multiple things from that formation, whether you want to run or throw it. I feel like they're going to want to they want to unleash. I have to imagine they want to unleash Kyle Pitts and they want to unleash Drake London. I got to imagine they want to throw the ball a little bit more than they have over the past couple of seasons. And on top of that, I can't imagine they don't add another piece in the draft. Fourth round or higher. First round, no. Second round, they shouldn't. They have multiple needs on that roster. Um, I would not ultimately be buying Tyler Algier though. I would wait. I want to wait and see. I want to wait and see what, if anything, the Falcons add in the draft, even if it's a day 3 pick who could come in and eat into his workload. Cordell Patterson is still out. Is still there. Is still on the team. He got phased out toward the end of last season. But does that mean that that's going to be the case the entire year? It's a long season. It's tough to get through the entire season with only one or two dudes in your backfield. I got to imagine Cordell Patterson still has a role there, and I got to think that they draft somebody, even if it is with just a 4th-round pick. But Algier himself was a 5th-rounder. If they take somebody in the 4th round, they're gonna cut into Algier's opportunities. You know, so tentatively, especially if you're not competing in Dynasty, I would be selling Algier. Um, what's his underdog ADP is in the hundreds. I think it's like 101 ish. Again, that's the super flex format, not one QB. Right now in the super flex contests on Underdog Fantasy, Tyler Algier's ADP is 101.7, so about 102. That's 10 rounds into the draft, 9.5 to 10 rounds into the draft. I mean, that's fine. You're not breaking the bank for him. In Dynasty, you probably the asking price right now is probably a late second round pick. To me, if you can trade Algier, yeah, you spent a 3rd rounder on Algier last year. If you can turn him into a 2nd-round pick, to me, it's like, I'll take the capital. If today you can turn Tyler Algier into a 2nd-round pick, especially if it's like in the middle of the 2nd round, or even better, like if it's higher than that, then you got to look at doing that. You got to look at doing that. I see the Eagles question, Alex. I'll just really quick, Rojo. If you turned Tyler Algier into Andrews and a third, if you also did you also draft him with a 3rd-round pick in that league? Because then you essentially swapped thirds and picked up Mark Andrews. That's a steal. That's a steal to roll the dice on that. Because Algier again, he had a nice year last year. He cracked 1,000 yards, 5th-round pick. Like, good for him. I'm like super happy for Tyler Algier. I kind of liked Algier last year going into the pre-draft process. Um, I would never have expected he'd take over the backfield and end up with 1,000 yards, um, but it happened. I I feel like if you can flip him for a 2nd-round pick, especially if it's in like the 206 or even in the 207 range, you just do it. You just do it. Just flip your investment for a better asset. Worst case scenario is you end up with a second round pick and Algier has two more good seasons. That's the worst case scenario. To me, that's something that's worth rolling the dice on. I like Algier. I'll take the capital, though. I'll take the draft capital. All right. Finally, Alex had a question about what the Eagles are going to do in the draft. I might be shutting it down shortly after that, but my thoughts on what my team should do, I have a couple. I don't want them taking Bijan Robinson, not with the 10th pick in the draft. It's just a bad use of resources from an NFL perspective. From a fantasy perspective, yeah, giddy up. It will be fun as hell. Bijan's easily the dynasty RB1 overall. He goes to a dream scenario. Not that he needs one to succeed, but he ends up in a dream scenario if that happens. For fantasy, that's all well and good. That offense would be one of the most fun to watch. It already is. Adding Bijan would make it even more fun. I understand all that. They better not take him. they better not take him 10th overall. It's just a bad use of resources in today's day and age in the NFL to spend a top 10 pick on a running back, to spend a first round pick in general on a running back. It's just not a good use of resources. At 10, I either want the Eagles to trade up for Will Anderson in the event, let's say Arizona trades out of the 3 spot and the first 4 picks are quarterbacks. And now Will Anderson is sitting there at 5. I want to trade up for him. I'm not as crazy as trading up for Jalen Carter, but at a reduced cost, I would do that too. And just get one of the 2 projected difference-making defensive prospects in this year's draft. That's what I would love to see. If the Eagles don't do that and they stay put at 10, in that scenario, I'm hoping either one of the defensive backs, one of the corner, whether it's Gonzalez or Witherspoon, is there. And I would take them. If you fail to trade up, if the Eagles fail to trade up at 10, they don't get Will Anderson in a trade up, they don't get Jalen Carter in a trade up for a reduced cost, and they don't get one of the 2 defensive backs, trade out. I want them to trade back, try to move back into the teens of the first round, and pick up some capital in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Pick up some extra picks. That's what I want them to do. If they aren't able to trade up from it, I either want them to trade up or trade down. Because Witherspoon's not going to be there at 10, and Gonzalez is not going to be there at 10 either. Most likely. So trade up for one of the difference-making defensive prospects if they can. If in the scenario where there's a run on quarterbacks early, if you can't, trade back, pick up some picks in the 3rd and 4th round. That's what I want my birds to do. That's what I want the Eagles to do. Rojo, I'll take this last question, or if anybody else drops anything in the last minute, I'll be happy to answer it. But I will be winding this down shortly. It's been a fun hour and a half talking shop with you guys. There will be plenty more to talk about in the coming weeks as the NFL draft comes and goes. Again, I'm going to try to be able to live stream for the draft. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Will on, get this set up exactly where it needs to be, and as much as I appreciate you guys coming in and talking shop with me, I know that another host will make these streams more engaging. I do as much as I can for you guys, and I want to, but I know we can call a spade a spade. Another host would make this more interesting, more enticing. So I'm working on that. I'm working on having that with you guys or for you guys prior to the NFL draft and moving into as we get closer to the season. Between Algier and Pacheco, it's close. I think they're in very similar situations from a perspective of the team didn't spend high resources on them. Algier's a fifth round pick. Pacheco's a seventh round pick. It could be easy for them to move on from those players or add to the backfield. I'll give the slight nod to Pacheco just because he's playing next to Patrick Mahomes. I'll always take the dude in the better offense, and there's not a contest here. The Chiefs' offense is better than the Falcons' offense. Scoring opportunities are going to be more abundant for the Chiefs, not just this year, but moving forward with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. I'll take Pacheco. That being said, if either one of those teams comes out of the draft having not spent resources at the running back position, like if you're going into the season where like the draft has ended, right? The NFL draft is over, and Pacheco is at the top of the Chiefs depth chart, and Tyler Algier is at the top of the Falcons depth chart. Offer them and a second round pick for a first in 2024. Maximize their value. That's what I'm doing. Are you able to make that deal happen? Maybe not. Maybe somebody doesn't want to give a first round pick for a running back. If you attach draft capital to it, like this year, I would think that sweetens the pot enough to where at least you can have a conversation. But to me, if those teams, if the Chiefs and the Falcons don't add significant resources to their running back room in the draft, I am attaching second round picks to them and seeing if I can get a 2024 first out of the deal. If the Chiefs add a running back in the third round or the Falcons add a running back in the third round, then I'm holding both, right? Because now the value is depreciated. You're not going to get the value that you were hoping for. Now you're just like, all right, let me see what happens out of this committee. These two guys are still talented enough where they end up being the 1A options, right? Maybe a rookie doesn't take their job right away. But if they come out of the draft unscathed, I'd actually go in the opposite direction and I would try to flip them for first round picks in 2024. Especially in Superflex, get extra bites of that apple, try to get Caleb Williams. So I hope that answers that question. If I have to choose between the two, I'll give the slight edge to Pacheco because despite the worst draft capital, fifth to seventh round is not, it's not significant, but it physically, literally, fifth round is 2 rounds higher. So Algier's got the draft capital in his favor, but I will give the nod to Pacheco because he's attached to Patrick Mahomes. Scoring opportunities are just going to be higher. They're just going to be more plentiful. And Pacheco's not a slouch catching the ball either out of the backfield. He can do that at a decent level. So if they don't invest in the backfield, flip them for first round picks. Attach draft capital this year if you have to make that happen. If they add to it and it depreciates their value, Chiefs and or Falcons take running backs in the third round, then hold on to them. Hope that they can prove that they still have a significant role in the backfield, and then let the chips fall where they may during the season, whether that means being able to maximize trade value or just hanging on to them. But I'll give the slight nod to Pacheco in a vacuum because he's just on the superior offense. And it's not close. Both look like they're solid contributors. Both look like they're good. It's just the problem with the running backs is they just get chewed up and spit out in the NFL these days. If you have a 4-year career at running back, you've had a great career, especially when you beat the odds from a draft capital perspective. And that is unfortunately not on the side of these two guys. Should they be replaced sooner than later? I don't think so. Will they be? Based on draft capital and just the churn at the position, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Running back is so fickle in dynasty. You have to be You have to be willing to move on sooner than you want to at that position. It stinks because there's lots of good players there, but that's the nature of the beast with these running backs with low draft capital, or with the capital not really necessarily being in their favor. But slight edge to Pacheco. I'll take Pacheco because he's with the Chiefs. Um, we're at the end of the chat. I don't see any other new questions, so I am gonna shut this down. We've been talking shop for an hour and 40 minutes. It's been a fun fast time hanging out with you guys. Appreciate the engagement. Always appreciate everybody coming in, hanging out, and talking shop. Being willing to come in and listen to me blabber on for an hour plus about whatever nonsense it is that I have for you. Um, We'll be back same time next week. Again, 2 weeks from the NFL draft, I intend to have a set up live streaming for the NFL draft, so you can come hang out with me while the draft is unfolding, at least for the first round, and then the second round as well, day two on Friday. We'll double dip to the best of our abilities. Um, Coming at you while all the action is live, talking shop as things develop. Should be fun. Looking forward to the most exciting part of the NFL offseason, just 2 weeks away. But that'll do it for me today. Thank you guys again. Everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.